Hello and welcome to another booktube video from me, Martha May Books. You might have noticed, if you've watched one of my videos before, that I have changed my channel name. Gonna lean here by my Persephone books. Not only have I changed my channel name, which to be fair was what I was originally going to call my YouTube channel, I have also changed my location. So here we are, changes all round. That's my news. Today I am doing my July wrap-up. If you saw my July TBR, then you will know that I set myself a challenge in July to read only ebooks. I didn't succeed to only read ebooks, which I sort of knew when I set myself the challenge, but it was good to have the challenge so that I couldn't turn around and read no ebooks at all that month. And I did manage to read some ebooks, majority ebooks. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first book that I mentioned in my Can I Read Only Ebooks in July video was With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. If you saw my June wrap-up, you'll know that I read it in June, not in July, because I got excited and read it early. Next on my TBR, my e-TBR for July, was The Fascinators by Andrew Eliopoulos, which I also read in June because, again, I got excited and read what I had already had in from the library, because I was reading all of these ebooks from my library, and so it made sense to me to read them as soon as I got the books so that I could then return them to the library and other people could read them too. So I've read that one as well. So then the first book that I did read in July and that was on my e-TBR for July was Silver Sparrow by Tiari Jones. This book follows two sisters who share a father. One sister is the secret child and the other sister is his public daughter. And I rated this book 4 stars. My problem with it, the reason it didn't get 5 stars, was the writing style. So the book kind of jumps around in era from, I think it starts off being narrated by Dana, who is, I think, the private daughter, and she also tells us her mother's point of view from the past. And I found the time jumps kind of weird and they kind of confused me initially. And then we follow the public daughter in the second half of the book and her mother's backstory. I really liked hearing about all of the women's backstories and their reasoning for either being involved in this situation or the public mother's point of view on her relationship with the father. But I did love the confrontation that comes in later on in the book when the father is torn between how he fathers both of his daughters and how he's put limits on how he can father his Dana, his private daughter, because he lives this double life, and so he holds double standards for his daughter and can't do anything about it without ruining everything that he has created. Then I read Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera. So I rated this 2 stars. This was not an ebook, this was a physical book that I read with my friend. We read it as a buddy read and I was really disappointed with this. First of all, I didn't know that it was an urban fantasy. So Infinity Sun is about 2 brothers, Emil and I've forgotten the other guy's name. It was kind of set up as there was this big war going on and one brother will stop at nothing to have power and the other one has the power to stop this massive war. So from that description, I did think that it was going to be like not necessarily a high fantasy, but not urban fantasy, which it was. So that was a surprise to start with. A lot of it follows phoenixes because Emil is obsessed with phoenixes and he works at the gift shop of this phoenix museum place. I just didn't like it. The writing was kind of weird to me. I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't really know who any of the characters were other than the brother, whose name I have now forgotten. I never knew, because it's set in this whole setting of a war, which I wouldn't have known there was a war going on if the back of the book hadn't told me. I would have thought it was just like fighting in the magical communities, not a war. There's various factions within the magical communities. There are people like celestials that have magic from stars. There are other people, forgotten their name, they drink blood of magical creatures to get magic. And then there are Celestials, I think, that are forced to use their magic for the side of the police force, who hate the Celestials, but don't seem to hate the people that drink the animal blood to become magical. So that was kind of weird to me. I just never knew who hated each other, why they hated each other. There's a whole thing that goes into the history of the people that founded something, and that was weird. It was just a weird time. Then I read Little Eyes by Samantha Schweblin. I kept calling her Samantha Schweblin, which I suppose is almost the same thing, but it's not the same name, so sorry about that. So I rated Little Eyes 3 stars. I was really excited for this. I loved the concept, the idea of these Kentuckys entering into people's homes. Well, they don't enter, they don't like break and enter. You buy one and they stare at you for ages and you don't know who it is. I really love the idea of seeing the kind of person that would want one watching them in their home, but also seeing the kind of person that would get joy from watching another person live their life. And initially I was like, oh, how weird. And then I realised like vlogging channels exist, and that's what people do when they watch vlogging channels. And also when they make videos, except when you vlog, you can edit out the parts you don't want people to see, or just not film them, which people who have Kentuckys can't do. The concept of Little Eyes is that these robots called Kentuckys exist, they have cameras, and people can choose to either watch or be watched. I was hoping for this to be like an episode of Black Mirror, and it was to an extent, but it almost felt like a series of short stories that we kept cutting in between, rather than being a full novel. So we follow a series of characters and then some mini stories within the novel. So there's some cool characters we follow, like there's the girlfriend of an artist, there's an elderly woman, there's a teenage boy, and then there are people who we just get one chapter, their experience with a Kentucky. I think I was just a bit disappointed with it. I think that I had very high hopes for how spooky and creepy it would be. And while it was spooky and creepy and there were creepy parts of it, what I like about sci-fi and speculative fiction is that the sci-fi elements are used to look at humanity and the way that humans behave, which maybe this book will do that for some people, but for me, I didn't feel like I got particularly in depth with the characters because we kept cutting between them. So I wasn't always massively invested in all of them and what they were going through. But I did really like the story with the dad and the son, where the dad was forced to get a Kentucky by his ex-wife so that he could keep custody of his child, which is so bizarre. Like, the therapist and the wife were like, hey, get a Kentucky as a friend for our child, which is so weird because clearly you don't know who then is watching your son all the time. Like, how weird. What an odd choice for them to have made. But I did enjoy it, I just didn't love it as much as I hoped I would. Then I read Dark Summit by Nick Heel. I rated this book 4 stars. It is about climbers on Everest in 2006. So 2006 was one of the deadliest seasons in Everest's history, and this book focuses on the party that were blamed for leaving a climber called David Sharp to die on the mountain. I found this book really interesting. I am interested in mountain climbing in the sense that I like to read about it, I like to read stories about it. I would never be interested in climbing a mountain like Everest. I'd walk up a big hill and complain about it and stop a lot, but I would do it. I have no interest in climbing Everest. First of all, going into it, I didn't know it was a non-fiction book. It was a non-fiction book, surprise. I did not know. I can see why that was weird of me to assume that it is a fiction book because it's about real life events, but I sort of thought it would be a novelisation of those events, which it wasn't. But I found the first half kind of dry. The author was just setting up all of the characters, well, all of the people that were involved in the event. So all of the climbers that were on the Himex expedition that found David Sharp in the cave, and some of the climbers that were also on the mountain during that season. But I found the second half more interesting when the ethics of climbing and the ethics of leaving someone behind were examined. So on a similar theme to Dark Mountain? What do they call it? Dark Summit. I always forget what it's called. I read Thin Air by Michelle Paver, which I have here. So this is the second physical book I read in the month. So far I read 2 physical books and 3 ebooks. And then if you count the TBR from my earlier video, I actually read 5 so far because I read all of the ones that were on my TBR for that video and an extra one. Then I moved on to Thin Air by Michelle Paver. Michelle Paver, if you don't know, is one of my favourite authors. Here is my Michelle Paver collection, just there. Thin Air follows a group of climbers in 1935 trying to climb Kanchenjunga, and it follows Stephen, who is the medic on the team, and his older brother is obsessed with climbing the mountain in the footsteps of a failed expedition. I read it in 2016, I think, when it came out, like just a bit after it came out. You know when you like know you'll really love a book so you don't read it for ages because you're worried about reading it. It was one of those. I actually found it spookier on the second time, maybe because I allowed myself to be more immersed in it, whereas the first time I read it, I was reading it on a plane back from Berlin, and a man was sitting next to me and he kept trying to talk to me and was like, oh, is that book good? And I was like, yes, please leave me alone to finish it. It's really good, it's really spooky. If you like spooky mountains, you should read it. I rated it 5 stars. And then finally in July, to finish off my e-reading challenge month, I read a physical book. I don't have it with me because I've now given it to my grandmother. I've not given it, I've lent it. I've now lent it to my grandmother. I want it back because I really like this book. So that was Small Island by Andrea Levy. So I believe this one was in my 5-star predictions video, and I was right. I rated it 5 stars. So this, I've gone on about this book so much. If you've ever watched one of the videos on my channel, you've probably heard me talk about it. But Small Island follows Hortense, Queenie and Gilbert. They all live in the same boarding house in London that is owned by Queenie. We go back in time to their lives before the Second World War. Hortense and Gilbert are from Jamaica and Queenie is from London. We follow their lives as their lives unfold and their history that they've shared together. I loved it so much. So as I said, I rated it 5 stars. I don't know that there's much else to say about it. I really loved it. So that was my July wrap up. I read 6 books in the month of July. If you've read any of the books that I spoke about in this video, please do let me know in the comments down below what you thought of them. I would love to hear your opinions and have a chat in the comments about them. Bye!